Andrew and Linda had been married for 5 years, and they weren't in a hurry to have children. They believed it would happen naturally when the time was right. Andrew adored his wife, and one of her little quirks that completely captivated him was this. Whenever Linda attempted to lie, her cheeks would turn bright red, practically glowing like warning signals. He had noticed this tiny giveaway way back when they first started dating. Whenever he asked her a question and she tried to fib, her cheeks would instantly flush red. For Andrew, this was incredibly convenient. It was like having a human lie detector by his side. As spring approached, Linda began dropping obvious hints about wanting to take a vacation. She had grown tired of the winter blues and longed to bask in the sunshine by the sea. Andrew, on the other hand, had no interest in beach vacations whatsoever. Besides, it was an awful time for him to take a break from work. However, Linda was persistent, completely fixated on her plan. She even went as far as choosing a hotel and selecting some exciting boat tours she wanted to experience. "How about I go with my friend Lisa this time?" she suggested, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "Then, when you finally get some time off, we can go wherever you'd like." Andrew was familiar with Lisa's family. She was married and had a 6-year-old son, whom she would most likely leave with his grandmother for the trip. Lisa was incredibly family-oriented, so it didn't seem like there would be any suspicious activities involved. Eventually, Andrew gave in. He purchased plane tickets, booked a hotel, and even gave Linda extra money for tours and souvenirs. On the day of departure, he drove Linda and Lisa to the airport. During the first week, Linda bombarded Andrew's phone with pictures of breathtaking sunsets and picturesque ocean views, each message expressing, "I wish you were here to see this with me." However, in the second week, the updates almost completely stopped. Andrew didn't mind too much, as he was buried in work anyway. They still exchanged messages occasionally, mostly about the weather or Linda's plans for the day. Finally, Linda returned home. Andrew picked her up from the airport and drove her back to their place. As soon as she stepped inside, she sighed and complained, saying, "The air just doesn't feel the same here." But then, they headed to the kitchen for dinner. Andrew asked about Linda's trip, and she kept mentioning how she wished he had come along, saying that at times, it got a little dull just being with her friend. After chatting for a bit, Linda headed to the bedroom to unpack. Andrew flopped onto the bed, turning on the TV for some background noise. "So, did you bring me anything?" he teased. At that moment, Linda was pulling out a pile of clothes from her suitcase when she suddenly froze, her eyes locked on something inside. Andrew sat up, glancing into the suitcase as well. He immediately noticed a bottle of wine wrapped in a vibrant T-shirt. "Oh, I brought you some wine," Linda blurted out, quickly pulling the bottle free from the T-shirt and handing it to him. "And what's with this shirt?" Andrew asked, picking it up and examining it curiously. The vendor packed it like that to keep the bottle from breaking. I was a little surprised, but I figured whatever, she said with a laugh. She bent back over the suitcase, turning her face away from Andrew before he could question her further. The conversation soon drifted to other topics, and the moment passed without much thought. However, later that night, when Andrew was alone with his thoughts, that strange moment replayed in his mind. Linda's startled reaction when she saw the bottle, her supposed surprise at finding it. How do you forget buying your husband a gift? A suspicion began to gnaw at him. Maybe that wine wasn't meant for me at all. Maybe she was just covering something up. Determined to uncover the truth, he pulled up the social media page of the hotel where Linda had stayed. The resort frequently posted pictures from different events held on the property. As he scrolled through the images, his eyes suddenly stopped on one. It was a snapshot from a nighttime entertainment show. In the front row, laughing, stood Linda and her friend. The entertainer, most likely a resort staff member or a local performer, was wearing a T-shirt identical to the one that had been wrapped around the bottle. Sure, it could have been a coincidence, but Andrew seriously doubted it. He remembered how flustered Linda had been when she found the bottle. A scenario began forming in his mind. Linda had been bored missing him, and ended up meeting a charming entertainer at the resort. After the first week, when her daily photos had suddenly stopped, she had likely become occupied with this new friend. And maybe, As a final gesture, that performer had gifted her a bottle of wine, wrapped in his own t-shirt, a sweet, or perhaps not so sweet, reminder of their fling. After that discovery, Andrew could barely focus at work. Anger simmered beneath his every action, making it nearly impossible to concentrate. By the time he got home that evening, he found Linda in the kitchen, chatting on her phone. "Hey, I was thinking we could maybe order some," she started, but abruptly stopped at the look on his face. "Andrew, what's wrong?" He took a deep breath and spoke in a calm yet icy tone. "Just answer one thing. Linda, did you cheat on me during that trip?" "What? What kind of ridiculous question is that?" she snapped. "Yes or no. A simple question." "No way. I would never," she exclaimed, her voice filled with indignation. But at that very moment, her cheeks flared bright red. Andrew had his answer. What a fool, he thought. Why do something that forces you to lie, when you know your face will betray you? She had clearly assumed he would never find out, but the so-called souvenir from the entertainer had ruined her cover story. Without hesitation, he told her to pack her things and leave. Linda broke down in tears, but she quickly realized Andrew was on the verge of completely losing his temper. She didn't argue. Instead, she threw her clothes into a suitcase and walked out his life. Andrew knew he could never forgive such a betrayal from a woman he once loved. Filing for divorce felt like his only option. It shattered him to do so, but what other choice did he have? This was her decision, and every action comes with consequences. Linda ended up renting a tiny apartment on the outskirts of town, the only place she could afford. Mutual friends mentioned that she was miserable, drowning in regret. Andrew jokingly said that she probably regretted losing her future beach vacations more than anything else. Eventually, the pain lessened, and he found a silver lining. At least they had separated before having children. As one final move, he discreetly informed Lisa's husband about Linda's little vacation affair, just in case Lisa ever got any bright ideas about traveling alone. In the end, Andrew moved forward with his life, older, wiser, and free from a wife who had once caused him so much heartache.